Hello everyone, my name is Shannon. This is Made by Boo, and I have got a little bit to share with some of my projects. I have one finished object and 2 works in progress that I will be talking about today. I am not talking about any of my advents or anything today, largely just because if you have been here watching day to day, it's old news, and if you haven't, you really should if you want to know about my advents. I have 7 different advent calendars this year and 2 pairs of advent socks. So it's one of those where I can share my progress on my advent... I can share my progress on my advent socks today. Or you can look back and see where I am, because I do tend to record over the weekend and then upload on Tuesday. So you will have seen way past where I am today by the time this actually comes out if you're watching every day. So instead, I will get started with my current works in my finished object and works in progress. And I did not grab any of my labels today. Alright, so this first project, it's going to be both a finished object and a work in progress in one showing. These are my Hamilton inspired socks. They don't entirely look like it to everybody, but this is part of a series that I am making with colors, a little bit with patterns, but mostly with colors based on Broadway shows that we will be seeing as those Broadway shows come through Boise this year. We're actually going to go see our next one next week, and we're seeing Beetlejuice. These I am preparing for when we go to see Hamilton at the end of January. I'm making coordinating socks for me and my teenage daughter. So I do have hers done. These are done using Cascade Heritage yarn. This, I don't think, is the right label for this color, but it is the right label for this brand of yarn. So our socks are coordinating because they are using the same colors, but there's something different about each of them. So she selected 2 stripes at the top. I did a slip stitch heel, which on the second one I definitely got the slip stitch off, but it is such a dark black. It's kind of a nightmare to work with for that reason, but it also means you can't see the mistake. And then 2 little micro stripes at the toes. I do need to weave in the ends. They have not been blocked, as you can tell from all the light bulb markers still on them. So here are her pair. She does a very tall sock. Part of the reason why our socks are coordinated, not matching, is because we do slightly different sizes. My feet are 5 rounds longer than hers, and my, round count is just 4 stitches larger than hers. So they're tiny differences, but they do make a fit difference. So each one of our socks has had a slight difference, so that when they're washed and everything, you can tell them apart right away. So these are her finished socks. I'm going to take out all the little stitch markers later. I'll block them together. I currently have what feels like an ambitious goal to have both pairs of these Hamilton socks, the sweater I'm going to talk about in a minute, and my 2 pairs of Advent socks all done by Christmas. Part of me has that in my brain that they will all be done by Christmas and I can be blocking them all on Christmas, but realistically speaking, I may be finishing them on Christmas. And part of that is just because I'd like to keep my Broadway socks with that buffer of the Hamilton socks done almost a month before the Hamilton show. In order to do that, I would have to finish the second pair by the end of next week, and I'm not going to make that unless I ignore every other project. But I'm trying to keep that buffer. After these, I will have 2 more shows to make socks for, and I don't want to be not finishing a pair before the show. So, on the Hamilton socks, I do have my pair, which mine are the same colors, but I did a 3-round pop of color at the top. I made mine a little bit shorter, just because I didn't necessarily want to go as tall. And then I had just kind of a vague thought when I went to do the heel for mine and decided, that'd be really cool if I did stripes on the heel. And it looks very Bumblebee. My husband and my oldest both think these look more like Hufflepuff socks. But we are going to just know that they are inspired by the playbill for Hamilton, which is that like dark gold. It would have been more Hamilton if I had done like colorwork stars, but I'm not sure I would have finished them on time if I'd attempted to do that. So I decided to do just that little bit of a stripe there. I might do a black toe. I don't know. This Cascade Heritage black yarn, like this is a high quality black yarn. It is really hard to see your stitches. And after doing the Beetlejuice stripes and trying to count those rows, like I am just so done with this black yarn. So I think that's part of why I only wanted the pop of color on mine. And even then, like it's a 2-row stripe slip stitch heel, and I think it made it look very, very cool. But it was also easy enough to count because it was like, okay, well, how many black stripes do I have? If each of them are 2 rows, I know how many I should have to be ready to be done. So we'll see if I have the energy to deal with the black yarn much more at the toe. But that is my first work in progress. I'm about halfway through the first sock in my pair of Hamilton socks. And then the next show we will be making socks, I will be making socks for is Tina, the Tina Turner musical. I am getting close to the end of my first skein of this like goldenrod mustardy yellow. I do have another skein of it. I will probably go ahead and wind that up today and just plan on using it for the next sock. I'm going to end up with a lot of this left over. I don't know what I'll do with it, but I just was not sure I could squeeze out 2 pairs of socks with just one skein. And who knows, maybe I would, especially if I used more of the black, but I have it. I'm going to use it just to be on the safe side. So that is my first finished object and my first work in progress. My next work in progress is right here. Alright, so my next work in progress, sorry, I do have to take breaks every so often with this camera. It only allows me to record somewhere between like 10 and 12 minutes at a time. So that's why there's always weird cuts in there. Anytime it'll just stop. I think what I discovered is that it has something to do with like the buffering speed, and I've messed around with it a few times, and it's easier to just pause every now and then and edit them all together. So this other work in progress I really have been keeping my focus on just these pairs of socks and this sweater. This is my Sporti Shrug. It will be linked below, and the yarn is from Maker Moran in the color Bridesmaid. I have made so much progress on this since last time. It's all kind of folded in weird. So, last time we showed it, I had just started my second sleeve and was getting ready to get going on the body again. So I say just started. I was on the rounds of it. So that's where I was on the second sleeve. And I have finished that second sleeve. I was keeping the sleeves kind of tucked in the sweater, and I will tuck them back in when I'm done here. And then when I started on the body again, here is where I was. So I started on the body again last weekend, and I have a few little markers in there. I went all the way till there on last weekend, and then that was all I got done throughout the entire week. So over the weekend, I had a lot of time to work on it, but during the week, I had work, and then my main focus was making sure I was keeping up with my Advent socks every day. So it was like, if those stripes were done, I was working on this. I let myself fall a little bit behind, but I'm at the heel point on everything, which, again, if you've been watching daily, you already know, and I may already be past all of that by now. But because of that, it meant I got a lot less done during the week. You can definitely tell the more purple in this part where I put on the rest of that other skein. I don't think it looks as odd in the sleeves. I mean, you definitely get a little bit of pooling there as the size of the sleeve changes. And a little bit there as well. But I don't mind that it's suddenly a lot more purple there or anything. I know there's things I could do. So this is how much I have left in that particular ball. And then I have this one too. So when I switch over to this one, I'm going to be adding length in until it's time to do the I-cord bind off at the bottom. And that is the part that I'm a little nervous about because I don't know how much yarn to save for the I-cord bind off. I mean, I'm still at that point where it's like, this is, I don't know, probably 3 or 4 rounds. Like, that's, the I-cord bind off is not right now's problem. But I just keep thinking, like, if it takes me, because I have weighed this out, if it takes me approximately a gram to get around that, like, it's a little bit under, but, you know, do I need to just times that by 3 for an I-cord bind off? Do I times it by 5? So, like, should I be leaving myself 5 grams to do that so that I have the 3 stitches? Because it's 3 stitches go back. So it feels like it's going to take at least 3 to 5 times as much yarn to do a round. And so it's kind of got me like, well, do I leave myself 10 grams of yarn to give myself that extra buffer? But then I could have extra rows, which would give me a little extra length, which, I mean, it's going to be cropped. But I just don't want it to be cropped to a point that I find it uncomfortable. So I haven't entirely decided how much I need to do. I probably should just look online and see if there's a way of calculating out how much more yarn do you need for an I-cord bind off. But as of right now, I'm almost thinking that I might just leave myself about 10 grams of that yarn so that I have that buffer. Because worst case scenario, I have a little bit of extra and I put it in Frankenstein's head here, where eventually it will go into a scrap blanket. Not the worst thing in the world. But also, since I'm trying to use as much of this yarn as possible to give myself as much length as possible, I don't want to end up with like a whole bunch of leftover. So it's been kind of a debate and a dilemma, and I am getting closer to the point where I will have to make a decision. And I'm probably going to leave myself more yarn than I think I will actually need just to be on the safe side. All right, so that is all that I have been working on. Again, I'm not sharing anything to do with my Advent stuff now. Later, when I'm actually working on making Advent projects, you will see those here. But really, all I'm doing with it right now is opening stuff, and these videos are so far behind what everything is. Anything I show you right now, you will have theoretically already seen and seen the next 2 or 3 steps over. So I do have a little bit of yarn to share. I am actually expecting to get more yarn delivered today, but that will probably actually be shared at a different point because, for one, it hasn't arrived right now, but it is also holiday themed, so it didn't really seem worth it to save it when I can just share it on Advent stuff. And based on the delay between recording and uploading this particular video, you will probably already know what my decision is by now. But I do have a couple of things to share on here still. The first is my December Yarnable. It does feel so late to be sharing this one. But December seems to be somehow both very, very fast and very slow for me right now. I think it's just because November came so close to the beginning, like Thanksgiving came very close to the beginning of December. Because obviously November came close to the beginning of December. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. So the theme for December's Yarnable was Dynamite. And it came with little green snip scissors. Very, very tiny ones. So these will go into a project bag. I feel like you can never have enough tiny scissors. 3 little T-Rex stitch markers. Oh, this yarn is putting fluff in my nose. And a tiny little, like, Notions 10. I don't tend to use Notion 10s very often because then I get this little clicky-clacky in your bag, but this guy is so cute. He's a little T-Rex knitting away. I don't know what I'm going to do with him, but he will need to be used somewhere. I just don't tend to use the tins when I travel. Who knows? Maybe I will use him to make a little kit for my car, because I always end up in the car and then have something that needs to be cut. Which maybe I'm the only one that runs into that problem. But, you always end up with, like, spare threads, or you buy a new pair of sunglasses and need to cut the stuff off. And anyways, so here is the yarn. And see, I would have thought dinosaur would be a little bit more, like, dark greens. I mean, when I think dinosaur colors, I do usually think a little bit more like Jurassic Park. Whereas this is definitely more like kid-friendly dinosaur. So I'm not exactly sure what I am doing with this, but that is a pretty common thing with some of these. So the other yarn that I got, I do know exactly what I'm doing with it. As I mentioned, we are working on, I'm almost done with the Hamilton socks. I say we're working on them. My daughter is consulting because some of the socks are for her, but even then they're going to coordinate. And so her opinion is a huge part of this, but I am the one actually making them. So the next show that we have coming up, we have 2 more shows to make socks for after these. Like, the Hamilton ones are still in progress, but the unstarted ones are what I'm talking about. And the next one is Tina, the Tina Turner musical. And we did select our yarn for it and ordered it because I wanted to make sure it was here before the Hamilton socks were done. Because as of right now, like, as soon as one pair of Broadway socks are done, I have to get the next one going. I felt like I had so much time when I first started, and now I feel like I'm so far behind. But this is what we picked for Tina. So this is from Leading Men Fiber Arts. It is the Sparkle Sock base, and the color is Red-Handed. So the playbill for Tina is actually very similar colors to Hamilton, whereas Hamilton has that, like, gold with the black star with Hamilton as the top point on it. For the Tina playbill, it is black with, like, her in gold outline. And I could have technically done very similar to what I'm doing with Hamilton, but just reversed the colors. But that Cascade Heritage black yarn, my eyes could not handle counting the rows. I was struggling with that, and I was like, nope. But for whatever reason, in my mind, for Tina Turner, it was just the idea of this, like, short, tight, sparkly, spaghetti strap red dress. And when I Googled up, like, performances, because my daughter didn't know who she was, which it's one of those where you kind of forget that, like, just because I know who somebody is doesn't mean everybody knows. And she was wearing that dress. So we looked at a few different reds, and we thought the sparkle would be really important. My daughter was hoping that we would find, like, some good DK weight and make some nice thick socks. But honestly, like, it's a 75-25 fingering weight, but it feels like a thick fingering weight. You would think that weights of yarn would be standard, but they're really not. I've never used yarn from Leading Men Fiber Arts. I have heard good things. But it was just, the color was so perfect. We have the pattern picked out. It's going to be mostly a vanilla sock, but it's going to have, like, detail at the cuff. And I am probably going to wind up at least one of these today, so that as soon as the Hamilton socks are done, I can cast on. And I may even technically start it a little early if it looks like my Hamilton socks are not going to be done by the end of Christmas as I want. I may start the cuff on these early so that I can get the detail done and then have them ready as on-the-go socks after that. But yeah, this is what we selected. And then the last show that we need to get the yarn for is Wicked. We already kind of know what we're doing for it. It's just a little bit of finding the right yarn and then actually doing it. So that is all that I have with acquisitions today. I'm very, very I'm both very excited and very overwhelmed with doing the Broadway socks. Like, I love that we are having the coordinating socks. When we went to see Clue last month, I made her take a little picture of our feet together, and I'm going to make her do the same thing for Beetlejuice, and she is enjoying having warm socks because this is my child who is always a little cold. So, I do tend to be a little selfish knitting with my socks and everything, and most of the socks I knit are for me. And I probably should kind of branch out a little bit more. There's no real reason why I can't knit them for other people. I just tend to make myself new socks, and now I have a big basket of socks. So I don't need more, but this gives a good excuse to share. So that's all the acquisitions, all the works in progress, finished objects, everything. There's not a lot of life stuff to share, especially as I'm doing daily videos, and even in those, most of the time it's like, well, just got home from work. The only thing really left is kind of starting to think about some plans. I do have some plans for some of my upcoming knitting. So I did end up with 7 advent calendars. One of them was like Quilting Notions themed, so it doesn't really need a project. And then of the other 6, I have projects selected for 4 of them. And then I'm making myself go on a little bit of a yarn diet soon. Not because I really entirely want to, but because I have so much yarn that is beautiful and then is being neglected. Like, I will buy the stuff to make a sweater, and then I get excited by something else before I get to make it. So it's one of those where it's like, I just need to kind of look at what I have and make sure that these beautiful colors are not just being forgotten about. But I don't exactly have all of the details of what I'm going to do with that. So that's something that I may do a little bit more organization and planning before I share too many details. Just that I know I need to plan for the use of this beautiful yarn. I don't think any yarn dyer dyes the yarn with the idea that it will sit in a box forgotten. And I don't buy it with the idea that it'll sit in a box forgotten. So I want to give it all a chance to shine. And that does start with doing something with it. So I'm definitely starting to ramble. I now have editing to do and socks to work on and a sweater to work on, and I really need to get going on all of that. So if you are following along with my daily Advent videos, I will see you tomorrow. If you are not, I will see you again soon.